Warning: this episode contains detailed discussions of the 2021 Oxford High School shooting, including traumatic injuries, loss of life, and the experiences of survivors and first responders. Discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the Minds on the Frontline Podcast. I'm Jeff Lassers, one of your hosts. I'm a professional firefighter, paramedic, educator, and content creator. My co-host today is Mike Mattern, who is also a firefighter-paramedic, as well as a peer support team expert. On November 30, 2021, two lives converged in the same Oxford High School hallway from opposite sides. Kylie Ossege was a senior lying critically wounded on the floor, unable to feel her legs and unsure whether she'd survive. Justin Templeton was an Oxford firefighter-paramedic and company officer moving into the school, making difficult triage decisions and searching for the students he could still save. Justin found Kylie, provided life-saving treatment, and transported her to a trauma center. Kylie survived, but the shooting claimed the lives of 4 students, wounded 7 others, and left lasting wounds across their families, first responders, and the entire Oxford community. What began as a brief encounter during one of the darkest moments of their lives eventually grew into a meaningful friendship. In this episode, Kylie and Justin share their experiences to illustrate how the same traumatic event occurred and how it was felt from different sides, and how understanding each other's perspectives helped both of them process what happened. Kylie recounts what she remembers from the hallway, the ambulance, and her recovery. Justin reconstructs the response, the decisions he made, and the weight he carried after the call was over. Together, their stories demonstrate how one event can create very different wounds for survivors, families, first responders, and communities. More importantly, this conversation shows how communication, reflection, and a willingness to see an experience through another person's eyes can fill in missing pieces, reveal the lasting impact of seemingly ordinary actions, and create a path toward healing and post-traumatic growth. This conversation reminds first responders that what you do matters, how you treat people matters, and the moments you barely remember may become the moments someone else never forgets. Minds on the Front Line is presented by the Frontline Strong Together 5 program. FST5 offers 24/7 mental and crisis support for Michigan's first responders and their families. If you or someone you know needs help now, call 1-833-34-STRONG or visit fst5.org to learn more. Wayne State University administers FST5 with grant funding from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Together, we are dedicated to strengthening the health, resilience, and well-being of Michigan's frontline community. Please follow us on social media and enjoy the show. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Morning.
Good. How are you guys?
Very well.
Good. Can't complain.
Well, Justin, welcome back. And Kylie, welcome for the first time.
Thank
Let's
you.
get started. Before we get to Kylie, Justin, remind everybody who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
My name's Justin Templeton. I'm a deputy chief at White Lake Fire. I've been there for, 2 months now, but before that I spent the vast majority of my career with Oxford Fire Department, where I retired as a company officer. So,
Does the only person above you, the chief, call you the rookie?
yeah, I'm definitely the new guy, so it's a lot of fun being the new guy again. But
What's it like being a new guy, but also like, in charge of everything?
I think the word's interesting. I'm not really sure what other way to put it. Every day is a learning curve.
Yeah, it's easy when you like walk into a new job. You're like, okay, I don't talk too much. I work harder than everybody. That's a very straightforward, simple answer. But now you're like, hi, I'm your new boss.
Yeah, I have to be extremely visible while still not seeming arrogant, which I'm sure I fail at sometimes. So.
We all do. We're humans.
It's okay.
It's the only new guy who everybody's nice to.
Right.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I'm expecting to get water buckets dumped on my head, and none of it ever happens.
Yeah, let's get it over with. But remind everybody where you worked before those 2 months and kind of leading into what we're talking about today.
So for 20 years before that, I worked for the Oxford Fire Department, and I retired as a company officer, paramedic, and that's probably why we're here today. So I was one of the company officers on duty on November 30th when we had our school shooting incident. That's how her and I met in unfortunate circumstances. But we were one of the first companies to arrive on scene. We did a lot of the triage for that event, and then I had the pleasure of taking this awesome human being next to me to the hospital and kind of growing a relationship from there and kind of understanding a lot more about myself, unfortunately or fortunately, because of a friendship that I grew with her. So
amazing.
We'll get into some of that.
Let's talk about her. Kylie, we just talked about you like you weren't here, but you are. So give us your background.
Yeah, so right now I'm a student at Michigan State University finishing my undergrad. I'm 22 years old. I was also a student at Oxford High School that day on November 30th. Again, that's how me and Justin know each other. But I was shot and wounded that day as well, and I had a long recovery process that I'm sure, we'll chat about a little bit. But
yeah.
Cool.
So
So
yeah, fortunately, you're here smiling and having a good
Yes.
time, and you're, for lack of a better term, been a great sport about that event.
I guess you could
I'm trying
say
to
it like
put
that.
a little light on
Good,
this.
good
a little bit.
advocate,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, that's a good-
yeah,
that's
that is
a
a
good
more
I think that's a
appropriate-
better way of saying it. A good advocate for mental health and working through things. And
A million things related to it, and this is just one of them. And we want to get into the mental health aspect of all that stuff that went down and how it relates to the first responders involved too. So can you briefly walk us through an overview of that day?
Yeah, so that year I was a senior. So I was, I think I had like a big case of senioritis, and I was like, I remember that whole month I was struggling with the senioritis, and I was like skipping school a lot. And then like eventually, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but like my advisor like pulled me aside one day and she was like, you got to come to school. Like, otherwise we're going to have to like make some calls. And I was like, oh crap. Okay. So I remember like from there on out, I was like, I got to go to school every day. And still to this day, I'm like, oh my God, like maybe if I didn't go to school, I don't know, but can't think about that now. So that day it was literally just like the most normal day for me. I went to all my classes. I drove to school. I went to all my classes, chatted with my friends at lunch, whatever. And then before my 5th hour class, I would always go to this one area of the hallway with my friends. We would chat before going to our 5th hour class. And usually I was always late because, again, senioritis, it doesn't really matter anymore. But we were all chatting there, and I had my back turned, and I was kind of facing, like, the window. And I remember hearing, like, this big pop sound behind me. And I thought, like, in my head at the time, I was like, oh, it's just, like, some stupid freshman that has, like, a balloon for some reason. That's what it sounded like. It sounded like a balloon popping. So I remember, like, turning a little bit, and I remember, like, for, like, a millisecond seeing someone dressed in, like, dark clothing, and then the next thing I know, I'm on the ground. I kind of think, like, just laying there, it kind of took me a minute to, like, comprehend, like, what was happening, because I don't know if I, like, blacked out for a good, like, 10 seconds or something from the fall, but, like, I don't remember a lot from, like, 10 seconds after. And I remember, like, our principal coming on the loudspeaker saying that we're going into a lockdown, this is not a drill. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, that's what is happening. Like, and I was like, and I'm on the floor and I can't feel my legs. I was like, I think I was just shot. And I kind of confirmed that in my head. And I was, kind of in between, like, this fight or flight stage, I think. Like, I definitely wasn't flight because I was, and he can attest to that, but because I was trying to do something, whether that was, like, get up or call for help or something. But I also wasn't, like, freaking out, like, screaming, crying like that. I think for some reason I was, like, very composed, and I think I was just like, all right, like, all I can do is wait because I can't do anything. I don't really want to make too much noise because I got to stay quiet now. I don't want him to know I'm alive still. But at the same time, like, I don't know what my injuries were at the time, and I was like, do I need help, like, ASAP? So I think it was just kind of like, well, there's nothing I can do. Like, I just got to, like, sit and wait. And eventually some help came. I think I was in the hallway for a total of 15 minutes. And eventually he came out to help me. And it's just funny, like, that I have no memory of seeing your face that day, just, like, hearing your voice. And John Jones, who was the driver that day as well. But he put me on the little stretcher, gurney thing, whatever you guys call it, I don't know. Wheeled me outside. I remember every little bump, going over every little bump on the way to the ambulance, and I was just saying...
Because it was painful?
It was so
okay.
painful.
And where did you get shot?
Yeah, so I was shot in through the left side of my back and then out the front side of my clavicle.
Oh, so at a cross.
Yes.
So from one shoulder to the next
Correct.
shoulder, basically.
Yeah.
from
So
end out.
with
Oof.
that,
It missed all that stuff.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Isn't that, and still to this day, I'm like, maybe I'm like meant to be here because the fact that it missed things that are so important. Like, I remember he was telling me like there's a major artery too that it like was probably super close to. It shattered my right clavicle, broke 2 of my ribs, and then obviously caused a spinal cord injury as well. So that's why I couldn't feel my legs for a while. He thought he was the reason why I couldn't feel my legs.
Oh, man.
But
from the...
I couldn't feel my legs well before you came, just so you know.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah. Just so you know, you don't have to live with that. But yeah, anyway, I remember feeling every bump as he was wheeling me outside. And I don't know if I was actually saying ow, but maybe in my head I was saying ow. But it was just so painful. And it was probably just a combination of all my injuries. And in the ambulance ride, I remember I kept asking him, I think my only thought was like, I need to call my mom. Because my mom and I are like this. We are like best friends.
We just met, Mom?
Yeah.
Yes. You're like a little clone.
Yeah, exactly. If you saw my dad and I look nothing alike. It's just my mom and I. Yeah, so I remember like that was my main concern. I was like, I need to let my mom know that I think I'm okay, but like this just happened.
You're aware that news gets around.
Right.
And you want to be like, Mom.
First.
Yeah, Mom, hear my voice.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
But, he was like, no, like, not right now. I think he was just saying, like, I got to focus on you right now. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. But, and I always tell this, like, just little side story, too. But I always remember, like, Justin and John, the driver, getting in, like, a small little argument in the ambulance. And I don't remember exactly what it was about, but I remember, like, inside I was kind of chuckling because I was like, these two guys are, like, arguing. I don't remember.
Wow, you're cool.
Yeah, for everything that you just went through, but that's what you're laughing about.
I don't really remember what it was about. I just remember hearing Justin say, just drive.
Like location, like where you going? Just operational. It wasn't like a personal thing. It was probably, what are we doing here?
We got in the truck, and on the way to the call, I had activated trauma for the whole county, right? So, and I was counting how many people because we didn't have a triage officer. So I triaged, but when I walked in the building, I was the only ambulance. So I was like, well, she's got to go or else she's not going to make it. Like, we're 15 miles away from an ER, so I got to get her to a trauma center. So we made that decision, but Johnny was like, why aren't we going to McLaren? And I was like, because I told you to go to Joe's.
Sometimes you just, I get it.
And it was just funny because he kept asking me like, well, but, and they were very good questions. Like, he's a great operator.
Right.
He had all the best intentions. And it was kind of funny. I finally was like, I got things to do.
Right. You're in such a locked in mode.
Yeah.
Put the pedal to the floor.
Just
and
go.
Get me there.
Yeah.
Like,
please don't give me another thing to talk about.
Bolus, right?
Yeah.
Like, she needs a trauma surgeon, not me. Let's get her where she needs to be. But,
interesting.
It was kind of funny. And she actually did chuckle. Because I remember being like, did you just giggle? What the heck?
That's wild to me.
That's wild.
But yeah, I think that says a lot about you as a human, but also that you don't know what's going to happen when things happen.
Right. And I think it's just like, I have this almost like sense of like, well, I can't change what happened, so I'm just like, I don't really.
Is that a natural sense you've always had?
I think so. Like that whole situation, like you said, I'm chuckling. It's like, well, here I am, but I mean, I'm not going to like.
Well, your acceptance rate's way higher than the average human.
I was accepting. That's a good term for it, I guess. But it's just like, I mean, I can't really change what's happening, but it's happening, so just
Jeez
here.
Louise.
Wow. Okay, so you're in the ambulance, you're listening to them argue.
Yeah. And eventually they dropped me off at the hospital. I ended up staying at the hospital from November 30th to January 7th. So I spent Christmas in the hospital, but I was in the ICU for a week. That day I had an emergency spine surgery. I had a laminectomy. They had to remove like portions of my T1 and T2. I think there was like shards of bone that had like gotten stuck or whatever, and then also like pieces of clothing. So they had to like remove that. And I had a hematoma as well on my spine. So they fixed that, and then a couple days later, I had a clavicle surgery, so now, like, my clavicle's literally just a plate and screws. It's barely even a bone. Yeah, and then after a week in the ICU, I spent, like, 5 weeks in a rehab unit where I did PT/OT every single day. And then, yeah, I mean, the hospital was, for me, it was an amazing experience. Like, I always say to my mom, I'm like, I believe that there was a purpose in taking me to St. Joe's, because I really did meet some amazing people there that, like, now I call them family, you know, just people who poured their hearts into my recovery and stuff. So I honestly had like this is weird to say, but like I enjoyed my time at the hospital, because in a sense it felt like nothing else matters right now. You know what I mean? Like anything that was like stressful before is no longer a stressor. So something about that was kind of like, all right, I can just relax and I only got one thing to focus on, and other people are kind of focusing on it more than me. I'm just doing what I'm told to do. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's usually advice people are receiving from your position, not giving.
Yeah.
You know, like to show you light rather than convincing us that you're
Right.
It's so interesting. Like I almost feel like get the sense of like you're giving the people around you relief. They're like, "No, I'm okay. It's okay. You're doing great."
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, I left the hospital on January 7th. I came home, was still a major process just going home, and you know, I was still in PT and OT for several years after that. Still along physical and mental recovery. I mean, still to this day, I'm physically and mentally recovering. But, you know, a couple weeks later, I think I don't know how, I don't even know if we contacted anyone to meet you. I think we just showed up at the station and we were like, or maybe someone told me your name, and I think we showed up at the station and we were like, is Justin here? And that's when we met him for the first time. And yeah. We've been pretty close ever since, so.
Yeah, you guys' bond is cool, and it brought you here. Like, you guys kind of have a combined, your efforts synergize into a 1 + 1 = 10 when it comes to sharing information and a look back at something like this for others to reflect on before they even enter it.
Right, and I think for me, too, like, a big part of my healing is, like, I always describe it like it's a big puzzle, and I want to know every part of the puzzle. So, like, he was able to fill in a lot of the gaps for me of things that I couldn't really remember. And like I find it interesting, and I want to know every single story and every little detail that happened that day. And he was able to give his entire side, which I thought was very healing for me, hearing his perspective, because it felt like, you know, when I was with him, it was just like this tunnel vision. Like I said, I never even saw his face. I think I was just so focused on something that like my vision wasn't even like, you know, actually working. But I think with both of us sharing our stories, I think it's healed. We've allowed each other to heal more. You know what I mean?
You've received as much benefit as the people who get to hear it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's a lot of teaching. I get a lot of that feeling too. You get that expressed sharing. So in the interest of treating this like a Quentin Tarantino movie, let's rewind and you show your camera angle of how all this went down.
Yeah, so little different perspective, right? I'm a 20-year company officer, kind of the gruff guy that sits at the department. We were sitting there having a conversation. Johnny and I were out at the second station, and oddly enough, we were having a conversation about one of the new guys needing to be trial by fire. You know, he needed something horrible to happen so we could see how he would react.
Yeah, careful what you ask for.
Unfortunately, the universe answered. But we got called to the high school for shooting in the area, and when we responded, when we pulled up, there was a ALS engine, which is the first Duke company there. The other two trucks got stripped off the road by injured people coming out of the building.
Can I ask you a question real quick? How many times have you received that call that there's a shooting in a school?
None.
Right, right. So this isn't like a structure fire where, although we don't do it every day, you're like, oh, I know how to react to that. So take me to that moment of like, there's a school shooting.
So the thing about this one is it came in very different, right? So it came out as the reports of possible shooting in the area of a school. So it's November. It's northern Oakland County.
Lots of guns everywhere.
Hunting season.
Every 15-year-old has a rifle, and we're like, okay, so we go to that. And really it wasn't that amped up of an event until we got close to it. And then we started hearing people shot in the, like, down this roadway path. Like there's a person shot here, there's a person shot here, there's a person shot here. My thought at that point was that we had some sort of drive-by shooting because it was down a roadway. So first one came in, it was a confirmed shot that wasn't already at an emergency room, and we were like, all right, well, let's divert to that. So we went and triaged a kid, and while we pulled into that, he was shot through the leg, and luckily it was not to use that. It was a bad wound for a child to sustain, but it was a tissue.
It wasn't a mortal wound.
It wasn't a mortal wound. We made sure he was all right, and we made sure he had transport. But I heard the other two initial rescues get pulled off by some of those things in the roadway. And then all the reports came in for what happened inside the school. They told us about all these casualties and possible fatalities at that point we're just hearing it over the police radio. So we made a odd decision in EMS to leave a shot child with somebody to take them to the hospital. We triaged him kind of off-site and jumped back in the truck. And we said, we got to go triage and plug holes where we can and see if we can make a difference. And we pulled up, that engine was there, but there was no other ambulances. It was silent. There was nobody around. We got waved to a door. It was door 8. See the door.
So there's no screaming. This isn't a movie where there's like the yelling and chaos. It was almost like shock and awe.
Yeah, like everybody had left the other side of the school, so we got directed to come around the door.
The unaffected side,
so like
if you will.
It was just empty.
Well, and I think too, like, that's like the eerie part about a school shooting. Like, you see school shootings in movies like that where like you hear the screaming, but like it's nothing like that, because when you're actually trying to live, you're not talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're staying silent. So the way you said that it was very quiet is almost like, it's like eerie. You know what I mean? Like, that's really how it is. It's just everyone's trying to live, so everyone better be quiet. You know what I mean?
I've noticed when people have that type of reaction, and whether it's fear-based or shock, they don't yell out of, it might be a quick yell, but they're not going to sustain a yell.
No.
Right? When a big thing happens, people just kind of gawk, and they don't make a sound.
Right.
They're taking it in.
Yeah.
And I could just imagine like I almost want somebody to start talking in those moments. Like, somebody break this silence, and my brain can then occupy, you know.
I think your brain is trying to, at first, just trying to process what's
That's
going
it.
on.
And everybody
Where
is.
you're just like.
It's like hundreds of people all trying to figure it out and look at it once, and I can just feel it out of you. It's like, ugh, I don't want to feel that.
Something for me that I learned after this, though, right? Like, I got shown a lot of things trying to figure out what I was, and I just researched it, trying to figure out why I was acting the way that I did and things after this. But like, if you believe in polyvagal syndrome, like, it shoots you up into that freeze area until you figure it out, and then you can kind of come back down and react. It's a natural process to be that way, but like, I don't think that we ever taught it. You know, like, I was not educated in a way to understand that. I thought if I was shot, I would be screaming until I couldn't scream anymore.
I've seen movies.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah, and we backed up to the door, and Johnny and I jumped out of the truck, and we walked through the door, and we turned right. I took 8 steps, right? Like, you count all these things. Like, I don't know why when I'm in that mode, I just get that way. But I looked down, and she was being cared for by one of the off-duty captains. There was another off-duty captain kind of bird-dogging patients in there trying to figure it out. And I was like, why are you guys here? It was kind of weird that they were there, but there was a total of 4 patients in this hallway. In my mind, this was a casualty collection point. Like, they had drugged these people to this point. The cops were clearing. The school is a very odd shape, right? It's huge. It has these big hallways that go around with courtyards in the middle of them. It's a very large footprint. So I looked. There was a rifleman at each corner, and I went, sheriff's department's doing what they're doing. This is great. So we turned around the corner and assessed a couple people, and Kylie was laying on the floor, and we assessed a couple other people, and unfortunately had to triage a couple people in a way that no one wants to do in their career, right? So there was 2 who were deceased, and then she and another young lady were laying there, and she was the worst one. And originally, we made the decision that we were going to take them both, because remember when I pulled up, we were the only rig.
The worst that was sustainable. Obviously, you found a couple deceased, but the
the
worst
other
in
two
the
weren't
fact
gonna
that
make
you
it to
could
the
do
hospital.
something about.
Yeah.
And that's
So
the tough
then
thing in that situation for people that are listening need to understand is that there, as a first responder, especially as a medic who's got to triage these people, you have to be able to disconnect at some level to go to help somebody that might need it. And that's a very difficult thing to even have the conversation about training on, rather than finding an effective method to train on it.
Well, it's against everything that you've been trained for your entire life.
Right.
Like, you have to go against every ounce of training you've ever had.
You have to admit the overwhelming nature of something and give up on a person to help somebody else. It's a weird return on investment.
It's a balance pendulum, right? So you walk through the door, and the front of your part of your brain, that's the husband, the father, the friend, all those things, you just shut it off. And unfortunately, we get good at it over time. So during this time period, it's a call. We're going to go plug holes. We're going to take people to the hospital, and we're going to triage. And I remember looking at the 2 guys that were there, and they were like, hey, how do we triage this? And it took me 2 seconds. I said, this is what we're going to do. And they were like, all right, we just needed to hear one more voice saying it, right? And later we'll talk about why that was, but it's a perspective thing. Mm-hmm. They weren't on duty. One of the things that's still crazy to me this day, that they went to the school to look for their kids, and they came across them and tried to make sure that they didn't bleed to death. So they didn't flip that switch. Like, I'm in uniform, I'm in the truck, I'm in the house where I go when I put on that, I flip that switch, I turn that front part of my brain off, right?
Real quickly, I also want to speak on the composure of the other young girl who was in that hallway that you met with as well.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And because I didn't know this part until Justin told me, but I'll let you explain it. But I think this also goes to show it wasn't just me that had this composure. I think all of us were kind of in this mode that's like, I don't know. We got what was dealt to us, and we work on it from here. Amazing
human beings, right? So we turned the hallway, and there was 2 mortally wounded people. One, they were head-to-head laying on the floor, and the other one was at the end of the hallway, and obvious injuries that would not sustain life, And there was another young lady that was sitting in a chair in a doorway, which just doesn't look right. Like, why are we in a tall, rolly chair in a doorway? But that's where she decided to sit. She was holding her neck, and she was this young girl, 14, 15 years old. And I said, all right, let me take a look. Just want to make sure that she had a good airway. This thing wasn't going to turn sideways on me. And she pulled it off, and she'd been shot through the neck. And she was like, I'm okay. I can hear her voice saying I'm okay because that had such a good tone to it. And she looks at me and she goes, I'm okay, but help them. And weirdly, it played into my triage, right? And I was like, all right, I guess that's what we're going to do.
It's a sign. It's a symptom. Like,
and she's talking. She's got an airway breathing. Like, that's the checklist that I'm going through my head.
Right. Patent airway,
grabbed a radial pulse. She wasn't bleeding anywhere else.
I wonder if it's because she felt like the danger was over. Like, she already experienced crazy, and this is like, okay, I see a lot of good guys with guns and people with Band-Aids.
Yes, because even I felt like that. Like, I think I never knew when the shooter was apprehended, but I could tell when it was safe because a bunch of people were just, like, flooding the hallways, like Justin and stuff. And I think after that, I was just really, like, just got to sit back and
because by comparison, you didn't feel like you that emotional dump, whether it's hormonal, whether it's whatever is going on inside of you, you were like, oh, thank God.
I think
this ain't so bad.
The adrenaline rush was over, and I could finally, it's weird to say rest, but, like, in a sense, rest, because, like, I know I'm being taken care of. There's nothing I can do. I just want to, like, sleep. I think it was just so much.
Completely drained of everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, you could let go.
And I'm sure there's a scientific reasoning behind that.
We're in a building, we can ask somebody later, that's for sure.
But, I mean, so I think that's what me and this other lady were experiencing for sure, was just this come down of this
relief.
You're
given relief.
Yeah.
Even though it's not over, in comparison, it's complete relief.
Right.
You've evaded the lion. You're the gazelle that got away, and although you're torn up, you're like, woo.
Yeah.
That could be so much worse.
Right. Exactly.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Okay. So
the strangest thing about it, though, is because of our training, we both paramedics been doing this for a very long time, that we always look for things that fit and don't fit, and that's where you find comfort, right? Like, if it makes sense. Like, if you got a broken arm and you're crying about it, that makes sense. If you're drowning and you have wet lung sounds, that makes sense. Like, right, we get through these processes, and we have these patterns that we look at as people. We watch all these movies where everybody's screaming and crying and making all this noise, right? Every time I've ever had a kid that's silent, shouldn't be silent, it's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I looked at her, and we triaged her and looked at her, and at first I only saw what turned out to be the exit wound. Oddly enough, we thought it was an entrance wound underneath her right clavicle. And she's laying in a giant puddle of blood. I mean, her hair is completely soaked. She'd soaked between her and we don't know whose is whose. There's just a big puddle on the ground, and she's almost silent, right? And I ask her what's going on. She's talking very softly and very slowly, and I didn't have a radial pulse on her, so I'm like, all right, we got to go. So I scooped her up, and I found what I thought was the exit wound with my middle finger of my other hand, and that was the first time that she really made sound. She said, ow. Rightfully so, because I had about 1.5 inches of my finger inside the exit wound on her shoulder. That wasn't on purpose. So
squishy.
Yeah.
I think I've said sorry before. I'll do it again.
It's
For the
all right.
record. Sorry.
That's a tough one. No.
Sorry that I put my hand inside your shoulder blade. But we picked her up, and as I picked her up, she finally talks to me, and she goes, I can't feel my legs. So that's how that whole conversation started. I went, oh, that's probably should have protected that. Yeah. We put her on the stretcher, and we were going to put her in the truck and then come back and get the other girl. But when I turned around, there was another stretcher there. And, like, when you say my face didn't exist, it's funny to me because we're in there, we think that we're calm in these moments, but our brain's only collecting the stamps of time that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a stretcher, and apparently I needed that information, but there's no people. In my memory, there's not a human being, and I've found those people, and they've been like, yeah, it was the person with the other stretcher.
Exactly.
But they're not there in my memory.
Yes.
They do not exist.
Exactly.
And my face didn't matter, so you didn't store it, right? So
Gosh,
like,
you make it sound harsh.
Yeah.
but
No, but like that, the program's going to dedicate
Yeah.
all its resources to keeping you alive at that point, right?
Yeah.
So it's like brain only has so much power now.
And then
Exactly.
the weirdest thing was when we breached the door with her to go back outside, and it's a pretty sunny day. It was actually a fairly nice morning, and it's blindingly bright, and then all the sound turned on. There's hundreds of people. There's ambulances and lights everywhere. Everything's noisy, and I went from this very like soft-spoken conversation to every noise is turned back on, and then we put her in the truck, and then the doors closed, and it went silent again.
Wow.
And then we went to the hospital, and I don't know, your mom knows exactly how fast we were going because she had
I have Life 360 on my
Oh.
phone. My mom saw me traveling on whatever.
Thought we kidnapped her.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom thought I was a hostage.
Oh, wow.
Because I was
no,
we were
not
going-
great.
Wow, that turned, yeah.
Yeah.
First, I'm thinking, they got to, like, yeah, but I'm thinking from my perspective, but from a mom that doesn't have any perspective.
Yeah, no, because she doesn't know what's happening at all. So she heard all she heard was there was something going on at the high school, and then she checked my Life 360, and I'm going like almost 90 on the highway, and so she thought I was a hostage. And then I got to the hospital, and I eventually called her, and she was following us. She jumped in her car, and she was just watching us
ain't
on Life
stopping me.
360.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red lights don't apply.
Cops are pulling over. Look, he's like, go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But,
Here's an escort.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay.
We put the pedal down and try to get her to a surgeon because, I mean, there's only so much you can do in a trauma, and we stopped holes and at the time considered some TXA and tried to make sure that right lung didn't collapse all the way.
Airway
and it
breathing
never
circulation
did.
and a quick
But
drive.
when you connect the points of those two, the entrance and exit wound, and there's only really important things in between point A and point B, right? So this, in my mind, was going to go sideways. It was not going to go well for her. And you prepare yourself for that, right?
Right.
And we got to the hospital, and we also thought that, because remember I said that I thought that was a casualty collection and how long this school is. In my mind, every hall had another hall that looked just like this. So my job was to get you there, dump you off, make sure that you're all right and in good hands. And then, like, as I walked in, Waterford Fire was awesome. They had manned the emergency rooms to help offload and restock trucks because they thought that this was much bigger. Originally, we didn't know. Right?
Great idea.
Yeah.
And
There's
that's
1,000
huge
students
idea.
in that school. Right?
Yeah.
It's huge.
And that's what the doctors said too. Like my doctors from St. Joe's in the emergency room, they said they were prepared for like 20 kids.
Yeah.
And I was the only one that was taken there.
Wow.
So literally, it felt
You
like
had all the care.
yeah, I got all the care, which I'm so lucky with. But it literally felt like I had so much attention on me.
Oh, you did.
I think they were. I think they were very prepared for a lot more kids when it was just me.
And all that energy they're building up for people to get there had to go somewhere.
Right.
And you had to be the receptacle for that.
Yeah,
You
you're
had
so
to be,
lucky.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Luckily, they didn't have to deal with 20 kids. They didn't have to
Right.
deal with 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we offloaded her, and the doctors like silenced all these people. So like the entire trauma bays are full of people, right?
Yeah.
And they silenced them, and they gave me our 30-second podium to transfer care. We moved her over, and it was bizarre. I turned around once again, and I thought my mind was playing tricks on me because my stretcher was gone. Well, Waterford had cleaned it, put it back in the truck, stacked up all these towels, and had boxes of IV solution and more lines and like all the trauma supplies that we would need, to where all I had to do was take my gloves off and get back in the truck. And we coated all the way back because we thought that we were just going to be doing this thing, right?
That's amazing. Good on them. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even thought of that.
No.
That's
amazing.
huge.
Well, that kind of throws you off too, because you're like, wait, hold on, I'm not used to this. Hold on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wait,
Like,
what'd you do? You messing with me?
Well, and I popped the doors open, and I just figured they were like there for a run, right?
Right.
Then I realized, man, why are you wearing a gown? Like they were gowned up in the ER,
Oh,
They're
wow.
ready.
waiting to help.
Yeah, like receive the
Yeah,
patients.
like no, we're
and-
working here right now. And
Yeah.
it was
That's pretty
amazing to see.
heartwarming.
It was great.
That's a
Great.
good action plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
That's one thing I'm going to
They
make
decided
sure
that was
we
their
think
response to this incident was to go to the
They got to do
emergency
something
room.
too.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not going to get called there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have
And
to
it
do
was the right thing
something.
to do,
They went
you
to
know?
a trauma center and hooked out. Man.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
awesome.
And I'm sure McLaren was doing the same. I mean, there's a lot of good
all
trauma.
of them did. So
And it's no
McLaren,
shade to
St.
any
Joe's,
trauma
like,
center in Oakland County. They're all amazing. They're all amazing.
They did fantastic work at all of them. You know, we cleared there, and then we got back to the scene, and I had to make the reports of who, what, where, and all that good stuff for the triage officer and figure out that stuff, and obviously get fresh people on trucks and serve the township and do all that stuff. But, she brought this conversation up to January 7th, but I was a new father. I got a 3-month-old and had just been married for like 6 months. You know, like it was pretty, 6 months before she got pregnant, but, or a year, you know.
I did the math. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Quick
but
math,
I was new at it, right? So either way, during this time period, you try to do the right thing for the people that you know are broken, right? Like, so like we had an amazing crew of people that you watch grown men that are just absolute animals have a hard time with these things, right? And rightfully so, because it's horrible. You want to see that. And they responded to very different calls than I did. They responded to go find their children, to go look for things. They responded in a community that they live in, that they've know every single person. And even if it wasn't their children, they were intimately connected to everyone, right? And I lived in a different community. I loved the community that I worked for, but I didn't have the same response. So we tried to take care of them, right? And I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I was so glad that she came and talked to us, because there's something really odd that happened on January 7th. And it was like the call was finally over. So between November 30th and January 7th, I had things that I had to do at work. I had to take care of people. I had to go run the calls. I had to make sure that I was still capable of being a paramedic. You question yourself during those times. But the only good stamp that could have came of this call was her walking out of the hospital. And she did that on January 7th, and it was finally done. And I could physically feel a shift in how I was thinking, feeling, acting, blood pressure, heart rate. Who I was started to reset, somehow oddly completely connected to her.
It was closure.
Yeah, it was the book finally, the chapter ended. Like I wasn't convinced that she wasn't going to die still until January 7th. And then she came up to meet us, and I was like, she's like, I want to meet you. And I'm like, I don't really want to meet you. So it's weird that you want, like, I just wanted to see a good thing out of it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and you find those so infrequently in your career.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where you get the closure, you get the person, you get the good outcome.
Once in a while, you get the guy you brought back from a CPR, comes back and shakes your hand.
Yeah.
That's cool. That happens a couple times throughout your career.
Yeah,
It's so important to see the other side of it. 'Cause so much of our life is 15 minutes at a time. We meet you, we talk to you for 15 minutes, we drive you to the hospital, and we have no idea if we were even right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, we don't even know if what we thought was wrong with you was correct.
Right.
You know, I mean, a bullet hole is, I can find that, right? Like that's, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
But there's no follow-up.
No follow-up. How's their life? What are they doing?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, so, or even just from how am I doing at my job? Like, we don't even know if we're doing it right half the time. We're just pointing in a direction and hoping. But
you can't just like call the hospital and be like, how is she?
You can. And in extreme cases, we obviously do, because I think that there's a lot of providers out there that deeply care about what they do. And I think that's what gets us.
And it's a part of the learning process, too. Like, hey, I called in and it's a stroke. Can you confirm if it was or wasn't? So we usually do it in a learning capacity.
So you actually can.
I do all the time.
I was kind of being sarcastic.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No,
they encourage us to, because it's a good learning experience.
Interesting.
And they also understand that there is closure. And I think now with the advent of, you know, when we started in this, you'd have to literally go find the guy. Oh, hey, doc, what happened to that guy earlier? Now it's like a text or a phone call or an email.
Yeah,
and because we're in that
time we went to the ER to see that doctor on duty when you're on duty.
Yeah.
So you could, but sometimes like I'm busy. Like, so I don't even think about it. Like, I got 2 kids and jobs and this and that. And I'm like, I hope they're doing good. Moving along. And that's kind of my disengagement there. Yeah. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes like
there's some that you definitely want to follow up with. And, and it does. The people that stick with you and
the kids.
The kids,
the young people,
the kids are usually the big ones.
You know, the sad stories. The older ones are a little bit easier to let go because there's just the natural nature of life and the cycles and all that stuff. But when we can't balance that equation is when we want to know. We need to know. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Well, there's another layer to it, too, that I think we need to realize as we go through our careers, and we're all more senior people in the fire service now, is when you're 20 years old, you don't realize that's what's happening. This is just how it goes. Somebody will tell me later. But digging that stuff up for your people to give them taking that one scoop out of the bucket for them every single time, right? Like they're not wondering how it went. We can play an active role as leadership to try to help them stabilize that cumulative stress over that time, right? Like you can, and sometimes it's not like, hey, are you okay? It's not hugs and wishy-washy stuff. Sometimes it's closure. Sometimes it's filling in those gaps.
Yeah.
We found a lot of connection because, I mean, that's why I'm such a huge fan of after action reports, because there was blanks in the slideshow. There was parts that were missing for me. And for me, there was some inaccurate data. And like I told you, when I breached that door, it was 8 steps to the right. Then there was only 16 steps to the next girl down the hall. When I got there to walk through the hallway, it's like 1/8 of a mile. And I never walked there. I just looked from a distance. Mm-hmm. So like you start questioning And when you spend a lifetime filling those gaps with the reality of what we do, which isn't always great, right? Like when you have gaps, you fill them up with absolute junk, like whatever the worst case scenario is, because that's how we treat people, right? We hope for the best, we prepare for the worst. So we've done a lot of brain exercise, right, to get us to do that. So that was super helpful to reconnect, because once you have one gap, you start questioning everything. At least I did. I can't speak for what anybody else does, but when one thing became untrue, the only thing that I had to rely on was my memory for that day, right? And now it's lying to me. So I had to understand, and none of this stuff I knew, right? Like I had no idea that we'd take snapshots and that we'd throw away the information that's not important for the day, and I didn't know it was a natural process. We didn't talk about those things. We never learned about those things in the fire service. Sure, you guys didn't either. And she kind of like just opened up a door to that through thoughtful questioning and having conversations. And I was like, I should figure this out. And she filled in a ton of those gaps. And then I started moving forward with a lot of the information that she was able to kind of fill in.
Yeah, two cameras for that movie instead of one.
There's definitely two camera angles, right?
All right, you can get a lot more information.
Yeah, we've talked about it more than once here. We've just had somebody on who is a clinician who was on the same run I was on, and we talked about our two perspectives from that same run, and we're talking about it here, how traumatic events can affect people differently based on their perspective of that event. So I'm going to ask both of you guys, but Kylie, I'm going to start with you first. When you kind of look back on this incident, what do you think first responders should understand from our perspective about how survivors and families kind of carry those moments long after the call's done?
It's hard because I don't know how you guys are when you go home. I've learned from Justin's sense, but it's like, for me, like, I think about you guys a lot more than you think. I don't know.
When you say you guys, you mean like first responders?
Yeah.
Okay,
like,
in general.
And I mean, especially Justin, because I mean, he was the person I was the closest with that day, and I probably spent the most time with. But it's like, I genuinely, like, I'm in the hospital, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know who you are when I'm in the hospital, but I'm like, I wonder who that guy was, and I want to meet him, you know? I mean, there's even just other people that, you know, maybe I had a shorter amount of time with that day that I'm like, I wonder who that was, I want to meet him. Because, like, I care, and I'm like, the way I think about it, I'm like, these people wanted to take care of me, and for that, like, I'm grateful. Like, in my mind, it's like I was dying, and these people were taking care of me, and these people kept me alive. How could I not think about them? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think every little thing that you guys do, whether you remember it or not, but, like, we remember it, and we care about it, and we think about it a lot more than I think you think we would. And it all matters so much, you know, even just, like, the small acts like that. You know, even just me chuckling at Justin and John arguing, it's like, that's something I remember, and that's something that, I mean, stupidly enough, like, cheered me up that day. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is kind of funny.
Yeah. You also have a fun sense of humor, too. Yeah. That made it easy, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, you know, it's just like, I go home, and I really do think about you guys. Like, I mean, I don't know how it is for you guys when you go home, if you're ever wondering, like, oh, did what I do, like, matter? Like, did this even matter that I did this? But, like, in my mind, like, it did.
Sure. Well, yeah. I could definitely see that. Yeah. Now, do you think it's also because it's like your only interaction with 911 in your life as a person who needed it?
Yes.
And we go on thousands and thousands of runs over a career. You know, you're at, you know, between anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 calls you've gone on in a 20-year career, depending on where you work at. So it's easy for me to disengage from those people's feeling. Now, I don't see as many shot people as one would expect, but you know, we see a lot of stuff, quote unquote. It's easy to disengage after number 1,285.
Right. Exactly.
You know, but you're like, man, I'm tearing apart this one incident in my head because it's the only perspective I've ever had.
Right.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, we look at calls and we just move on. We don't realize that might be that person's only interaction with us.
Or and with any first responder.
We made a bigger difference than what we thought because it's routine on our end type deal. Yeah. No.
And I think that just goes to show how important your work is, the fact that it's like, oh, we do this, you guys do this every day. Imagine how many more people are thinking like me, where it's like, oh, I remember them and I care about them. There's probably like hundreds out there. You know what I mean? And you guys might not remember because you guys do this for a living and you do how many a day. But like, imagine how many patients that you've cared for, people that you've cared for, think like me and are like, oh, I appreciate that guy.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we don't think...
There's a couple probably out there that probably don't appreciate some of the things I've said to them over the years, but we're human.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly.
It might have happened. I don't know.
More like hypothetically.
Yes. So, Justin, I'm going to switch to you now. Coming from the kind of the first responder thing, you've talked about a couple things here today. You know, you have the memories of accidentally finding the bullet hole, or, you know, the argument on the way to the hospital. Kind of talk to us, how do first responders carry that differently, you know, based on their role, what they saw, what they did, or what they had to do?
So there's a lot of aspects to it. And I remember young in my career, we carried all of them with us. It's like, Kylie, the first time that you go on those horrible calls, it's the first time. So it has a huge impact, right? And then you move through. And to what you said, you start disengaging. And there's good and bad along with the disengagement. So while it doesn't, the bad things don't feel as well or as bad, right? They're not as bad. I have a feeling that we get disconnected from the good part of it too. Because the things that you hear from people like Kylie, like laughing that we were kind of arguing, you know, they're the small things. It's not about, she doesn't remember the IVs and how quickly they went in, right? Like, we don't remember these things, right?
I thought if you were to ask me, I just took a ride in an ambulance. I don't remember anything
wild
poking or prodding me.
Yeah. So it's those tiny moments of humanity inside of it are what really matters. And unfortunately, we get too far away from that. But the perspective of where you're at, that call was incredibly different as a call for me than it was for a guy that's looking for his own child. That call was a call that was incredibly different for me than somebody that their kids went to that school and their kid's best friend was killed in that school shooting, right? These are things that affect families forever. Right? They affect communities forever. And they affect us all differently because of where we're standing, right? So my job that I signed up for was to go help people. That's what I did that day. Doesn't make it easy. Even after 20 some odd years, this was a first.
Do you think that perspective allows you to process the rest of it? Because it's not like, I think this, now I feel fine, but more of like a series of thoughts that allow you to break down something to logically accept it.
So much of that is that in retrospect, I realized that throughout life we go through, hopefully you go through post-traumatic growth, or you just go through growth, right? Like normal people do it without smashing their thumb with a hammer every 15 minutes, but some of us need the hard lesson. But as you work through this process, it's rhythmic. So like I had that perspective because of issues that I had 10 years prior in my career, because the bucket got full, because I had too many cases that I'd pushed into the back that caused some cumulative stress problems. And they weren't massive, right? But like I had relationship problems and friend problems and issues with attitude and all sorts of things because of, probably in retrospect, partially because of not dealing with things in life. And this is part of my life now, right? And that's not just us that go through that. I mean, normal people do these things in life. So I think that gave me that perspective of saying, because I was a good operator, because I wanted to know how to do my job, that we did the right thing. Like, don't get me wrong, choosing one child over another is an incredibly hard thing that you carry with you for the rest of your life. That's something that we'll do.
Even if you're right.
Yeah.
Looking back at everything.
I can be the most hardened person
doesn't
in the world,
matter.
and it'll bring a tear to my eye every time we talk about it. It's a very hard thing to do, is to choose, right? But that's what we're supposed to do, and I made the right decision. It doesn't make both those not exist in the same place. But that perspective of like where you sit while you're at it. Like I watch her with her mom, and like I can't imagine being a parent trying to like, you know, like the perspectives of this, try to work through that with my kids. And that changed now because I have kids. I did that later. And now I put my daughter in her shoes, and I look at her parents who are awesome and try to think through that process. And holy cow, are the perspectives different.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that ever changed with me as a first responder was when I became a dad, because your perspective on every call you go on is completely different. And especially when it comes to kids, as much as you try not to, you put your kid on the other side of that run.
You land up holding 3 seats. So when we go to the call and we don't have those things, it doesn't make you unhuman. It doesn't make you, and some people are still affected, right? Like everybody can be affected by a lot of things. I mean, people have little kids that are important, nieces and nephews if they don't have children. But like immediately when you could become a parent, you think about, if I was that person's parent, if my child was that child, like you put yourself in those positions. And like she asked me like 312 times to call her mom on the way to the hospital. And it was literally that I was just trying to stop holes and plug bleeding and get fluids to get a radial pulse back. And weirdly enough, one of the only regrets of that day was like I should have put the phone next to her head, at least, because now I look at it because I've talked to Marita about it, right? Like, and she's like, I just wish I could have heard her voice. And that's just another perspective. If I could have managed two of those sides.
But you can't.
You were talking about that, and I'm like, but you just got to call. Like, as you're telling the story, I'm like, just call her. As a dad.
Yeah.
Now, you asked me this in 2017 before I had my first kid. I'm like, lady, I got you back. We'll take care of it later. But now I'm like, what's her number? I'll call her right now. Like, I'll call her right now.
Yeah. And it's just that recency and primacy thing. Like, I got bloody hands, my phone's in my pocket, I'm not reaching after
and
them.
you're
That's
in the
what
mode.
I've always done. I'm treating this thing.
Well, you're locked into what you need to do.
And
you're in your battle armor in the moment.
That's what he kept saying to me too. He was like, I just gotta like focus on you right now. I think you said something along the lines of that, and I was like,
let's worry about you, because you were worried. Because you said actually something slightly more.
And we can put it on speaker real quick. I get it though, because I've been there too. But like looking back, and as a dad, and you've had what 5-6 years to reflect on this.
Yeah.
There's a lot there.
It's easy to look back at it and go, I would change this, I would do this, I would do this. But in the moment, you know what I mean? You're so locked into what you're doing.
Yeah, you can have my phone. You know what I mean? Like, whatever.
You got a good arm over there? Do it with your left hand.
And sometimes it's like in those situations too, because I'm like, my head is filled with what ifs like that, like just all the time of a bunch of different things that happened that day. But it's like sometimes you just can't look back like that. I mean, especially with your guys' job where you guys do this for a living, but it's like, imagine how like just draining and terrible that is just to be thinking and just have your mind filled 24/7 with, well, what if it happened like this? What if I had just done this? It's like, how unhealthy is that? Because I get like that sometimes, and that will literally fill up my entire day. I'm like, and I'll tell my mom about it. Again, my mom's my best friend. I like rant to her, and she's like, well, it didn't happen that way. And sometimes you just gotta like take the cards that you're dealt with and like play with it. You know what I mean? Like,
see where your motivation has come from. You had a good foundation of acceptance.
Yeah.
The crazy thing to me is that, I'm 40 years old at this time, trying to, like, 20 years of service, trying to figure these things out. And she, like, walks in the gate at, like, oh, there's things that you can control and things that you can't. Because for the first 10 years of my career, I played the what-if game. That's how I got into training. That's why I became the educator. That's why I got into it, was to make sure that
hypervigilance.
I'm not going to, I'm going to run hypervigilance. I'm not going to play the what-if game. I'm going to make sure that I'm the best operator that I can be. And she's like, well, you just can't question those things, which just speaks towards the family that she has. Like, they're amazing people.
Came from somewhere. You're either born with that or somebody, nature and nurture, I think, a little bit there.
Well, how cathartic was it?
Apparently.
How cathartic was it for you to have that on the other side where you can go, like, I'm sorry, I accidentally put my finger in that hole, or where we go back and we think about these things like, oh man, I can't believe I did that. I feel bad about doing this. How cathartic were, even today, where you're like, listen, it was okay. Where we do second guess those things, but now you have somebody who's like, hey, listen, it's all right. It turned out okay. How cathartic do you feel that is?
Like, all the things that you think that are like issues in the back of the rig, like, oh, I can't believe I kind of got on my partner about where we're going in front of a patient. Like, she's like, it was funny to me. It made you human. It broke the silence. Like,
exactly.
It's the perspective of where we're looking at. It's completely different. And to be honest, it is bizarre to say. Like, she can sit here and be like, oh, you took me to the hospital, right? And I take very little ownership over her health. I think that she somehow would have figured it out, right? Like, that's how first responder minds work. But like, in the long run, it has been so helpful to have that other viewpoint of it, to hear her side of it, and to see how that operates from the other side. Like, cathartic, healing, I'm not sure what the word is, but I'm pretty sure at this point in my life she's done a lot more for me than than I have for her. And that's weird to say, right? Like, we go, okay, we took him to the hospital, we plugged holes, we made sure it was there. But it also validated what we did. After 20 some odd years of what we did, we had an awful event occur, right? And unfortunately, since then, it's not the only.
It's not even the only one in Michigan.
It's not the only one that our company
right, yeah. Exactly.
It's bizarre.
It's wild that Oxford Fire has been on 2 of these things. It's wild. That just speaks to the times.
For me, it allowed me to shift where I stood. So it allowed me to take it from this, the world's trying to kill us, right? Like, that's the viewpoint that a lot of first responders get. We get hypervigilant, we back into corners, we don't let our kids play in large groups, like, right? We become these people. And it allowed me to see it from this shift, to view it from a different place. And I get beat up on this a lot. It either triggers people or it doesn't. But we have wins and losses categories, right? So we have a tendency of focusing on the losses, the hard things, the things that we didn't think went well, the drownings, the ones that didn't make it, the choosing one human life over
at
another.
least internally. We're not say it.
Yeah, we don't.
We
say
might
it
brag
out loud.
about
I
the
mean,
good stuff, but we're
yeah.
thinking about the
But
negative.
that's the things that occupies our space, right? So for me, it's very bizarre to say, and I say it over and over again, but we have wins and losses. And I would articulate and argue that we go on lots of calls in our career, like Jeff said. The vast majority of them are taking people to the hospital, holding grandma's hands, broken arms, bloody noses, coughs. And some little devil in the details meant the world to that person in that moment. And we don't pay attention to that because we're too busy focusing on the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the vast majority of the time that those good things are happening. For the first time in my career, she allowed me to put something even as horrible as this into a win category.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
Yeah.
win.
That's a big rock she took out of the backpack. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, a proactive taking the rock out from
and
an
it's
administrative perspective.
It's
She's doing this as a human.
horrible thing that happened, right? And I would,
Yeah.
and if I could delete it, I would 1,000 times over. But it was a win,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we did a good job. She's sitting here. She's amazing. She's alive.
She walked in.
I got to watch her walk across the stage for her graduation. It was
Right.
one of
Yep.
the best moments I've had.
Yeah.
You know? And I truly mean that. Like I was like, I'm so nervous and excited to be here. 'Cause I
Yeah,
just
it was my family and Justin.
Awesome.
I have to see her walk.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Keyword walk across the stage,
Yeah.
right? Like I had to see
Yeah.
that.
You owe it to yourself to go
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, so it was pretty awesome, but it allowed that viewpoint, right? It allowed it to shift and move over and for us to see what we do from a different light. Yes, the medical procedures and the plugging the holes and giving all this stuff is super important. But you know what's important to the individual? The other stuff.
Yeah, that's huge. So let's get into the meaning, reflection, the post-traumatic growth, the support after those difficult experiences, and kind of put a bow on this. And I think that's kind of where Justin's leading here. So Kylie, what has healing or even growth looked like since that day? And I'm not talking about the shoulder and the PT and all that other stuff. I'm talking about the big picture healing.
Yeah, I think just a lot of communication has helped me so much. I mean, out of everyone that I've talked with that I met that day, Justin is at the top for sure. But there's still a lot of people that I've met that day that I'm like, wow, like, people might not think you did much, but, like, to me, you did a lot. You
Yeah,
know
from
what
the
I mean?
dispatchers sending people to the
Right.
people showing up to just filling up ambulances. That's huge.
Right. I mean, even just the first person who came and attended to me, like, she didn't do anything. It was too painful to her to do anything to me, and she probably shouldn't have anyway. I probably should have just laid there and just waited for, like, real help to come, so maybe it's a good thing she didn't do anything. But it's like, in my eyes, you're the first person that I listened to after this. You're the first person that was trying to comfort me in any way possible, and, like, for that, I'll, like, forever be grateful. I don't care that you didn't do anything to help me, really, but just the fact that, like, you were the first person that I heard, and the first sense of, like, okay, help will come, that is an emotion I can never explain.
And
So
knowing
it's-
that it's like, oh my God, it's over.
Right.
The
And
bad
sh-
part's over.
And, like, this lady probably thinks, like, oh my God, like, I couldn't help her. But it's like, no, like, you helped me in a way that you don't think you helped me. Just listening to your voice helped me tremendously. Like, you can't do everything. Again, you can't undo what's been done, but it's just, like, the small things are what I remember. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And that's just 2 stories, but there's so many more stories like that where it's like, thank you. Because you don't know what you did, but, like, in my mind, I think about that tiny little thing every single day. Sometimes, like, I get teary-eyed just talking about it because I'm like, I just want to, like, text these people and hug these people and say, like, thank you. You might not think you did anything, but, like, you really did, and I think about you guys, like, every day, truly. Justin's, like, again, he's at the top. I think about him every day, but there's a handful of people that I'm like, maybe you didn't do as much as Justin, but I still think about every little action you did. And so, like, imagine Justin, like, I literally think, I don't remember much, and I can only attest to things that have been told to me. I remember, like, a handful of things between me and Justin. He just did his job, right? Like, he just took me to the hospital. Like, he's just doing, like, what he has to do. But, like, to me, I'm like, you took me to the hospital. In my eyes, it's like you saved my life because, you know, I don't know what else could have happened. I just continued to lay there until I died. Like, I don't know. In my eyes, it's like, no, you took me to my safety, and you were the person that allowed me to recover so much. So it's like, I think about that all the time. And again, he's just doing his job. He probably doesn't think about it like that. But it's like, no, you are the reason I am here today. So that's the way I look at it.
You little gangster. You're awesome. Justin, what does growth, reflection, or meaning look like for you as a responder after this? From her, it's almost easy to understand. These quote-unquote heroes showed up and did their job, but they did it well, and she lived. So for her perspective, it's like a storybook of course it was happy. But like living with a lot of the stuff that you've reflected on today. Talk about that upward swing of acceptance.
Yeah, so you start getting this light, and it's weird because right when you first time's on, it's like walking out of a dark room and you're a little bit blinded by it. And it's not overly comfortable, but kind of understanding the importance of some of the things that aren't those huge moments, right? Like, and I've been incredibly fortunate. I spent an incredibly long time in EMS, still transporting and on the box and doing those things, and I always loved it. Like, I really did. So like that made it easier, but it also occupied and owned my life. So I guess for me, growth has looked like a lot of positivity, which I didn't have. Like, it's control over the things that you can control and not over the things that you can't. It's realizing that even though there might be horrible things, there's good in them. So that's what it's looked like for me. And a lot of it's been a change of viewpoint with different leadership positions and things that, like, if I could have done this earlier in my career to shine light on it for somebody else, if I could have checked on that patient and told the other people to where maybe that wasn't there. And honestly, I was the guy that would have been like, well, we went to the same call. Why are you having a problem? So for me, it allowed me to see it from a lot of perspectives, because the amazing thing about her is she has these great stories, right? Like, she tells me the ones about her and I all the time, but she has the me and Johnny conversation about every person that she ran across that day. Like, she does. She has these little moments from the first person that talked to her, from the first person that held her hand, from the woman that washed her hair and spent a little extra time getting the cake out of it. And some of it is just how we treat other people, right? It's not treatment the way that you and I think it is. Well, that's incredibly important. Being good at lines, being good at throwing tubes, being good at drugs and ACLS and all the other things that we're all good at. I've never heard her say any of those things outside of thanks for getting me to the hospital and I didn't bleed to death, right? Like, the devil in what we do is in the details. And it really is, it's changed my viewpoint to where holding grandma's hand was always something that I did. And now I do it with a great sense of pride to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. It is different, right? Because to her, that means something. So it's perspective. It's just sitting in a different space. And we've talked about it before, and I just invite people to stand somewhere else. If this is hard, and it will be, right? Like, life is going to be hard, no matter where you're standing. We've all had hard points in our lives. You're allowed to move somewhere else and look at it from it.
Yeah, you don't got to resolve that angle.
No, you don't. Like,
that's where a lot of people get stuck, I think. But what about this? Like, yeah, but
both these angles are true, angle? Right?
Yeah, right.
Like, I had to make horrible decisions. She got to live.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And she has these funny, witty little stories and things that she remembers inside of it that mean things to her.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting what people walk away from our interactions with. I'm reflecting back of all the conversations I've had with people, and I hope they remember them fondly. Because part of my care is that if, things are okay, I like to make people laugh. That's kind of my way of engaging with patients. And if I get a good laugh out of them and they feel good, I feel good about that. So I hope I've left that with them.
Oh, I'm sure you have.
It'd be fun. You know what I mean? Like,
but it's the hardest thing to teach, right?
Hardest.
It's sincerity. Yeah, we can teach a gorilla how to do the mechanical parts of what we do.
Yeah.
But to provide comfort and actual care is a different thing. That's communication.
Yes. It's funny you mentioned that. I was at a football game this past year, and this gentleman comes out to me. He goes, "Hey, I remember you. I don't think you remember me." Thousands of runs.
Sure. Yeah, it's hard to.
He said, when my son was a newborn, he had a seizure, and he started explaining the run, and I kind of remembered it. And he goes, "Yeah, all I could remember was how nice you were to calm me down. Like, you were like, it's going to be okay. We're going to, you talked me through it." And I'm like, and that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. And I go, well, how's he doing? Oh, well, he's in nursing school, blah, 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 blah. But I'll always remember how you just kind of were nice. You talked me down. So it brings up what you're talking about is like, that was 20 years ago. I didn't really remember, what you were doing, but it was how you made that person feel. Yeah. Right. So it's huge.
Yeah. And like you said, they're not going to like, oh, he gave me good meds and I felt better from my broken arm. They're going to remember the care you gave from human to human.
Yes.
There's a lot there. There's a lot of extra steps that you make us reflect on, young lady.
Yes.
You're bringing us a lot of wisdom here.
She
almost
does that
subconsciously.
every time that she talks.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying.
It's kind of nice. Well, we're also she's also probably like just your standard intelligence, and we're all kind of like dim-witted in our own ways.
No. So I become firefighters.
That's exactly it. That's it. All right, Kylie, close us out. What is one thing you want first responders to take away from this conversation today?
Overall, I just think it's like what you guys do matter, and you guys matter, and I hope you guys go home every day and you feel a sense of comfort knowing that you help someone.
You make it
just
easy
as simple as that, honestly.
That's amazing, kid. That's really amazing. What about you there, boss? Chief guy?
Deputy chief.
White shirt wearing mofo?
Yeah.
For me, it's just, we have to stop focusing on all the negative things that we do, right? That has been, for me in my career, the only things that we talk about, the bad runs, the horrible things. I want you to think about the fact that you've spent a lifetime in a career and you have successfully delivered happy, healthy people to the emergency room that you've provided excellent care for at a vastly higher rate than any of those other problems. And that matters. And think about the perspective that people like Kylie put on things. If we put that in the forefront, what they remember, what we do really is for them. It's not about us. So if we can change our viewpoint, stand somewhere else, look at it from another angle, and fill the bucket of good stuff rather than just the bad one, we'll all do a little bit better.
On that note, thanks guys for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Minds on the Frontline podcast. We have more great content coming out soon. Please check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn. And make sure to like and subscribe to all Minds on the Frontline podcast social media channels. Thank you, and have a great day.